Supermassive games have a big problem, and one that doesn't seem like it'll be fixed anytime soon. Ever since Until Dawn, every decision-based horror they've put out has been progressively worse, and their latest sci-fi entry, Directive 8020 is no different. I've talked a lot of shit about Supermassive over the past few months, but I truly don't want this company to fail. I believe they can make a great game, but they're just spending way too much time on these smaller, lower stakes, dark picture anthology projects. If they put all their effort into one big game like Until Dawn or The Quarry, I think they could make something very fun. To be honest, I didn't even plan on making a video on Directive 8020. I bought it for my own personal enjoyment because I remembered the trailer from a few months back and how good it was. When I was watching that trailer, I was so surprised to see that it was from Supermassive, because their reputation had been pretty bad recently, and I just could not believe they made something that interesting looking. The only reason I'm even making this video is because these devs just keep infuriating me. The concept of Directive 8020 is one that had a ton of potential. It was essentially a photorealistic, big budget Among Us. You've got this sci-fi universe and a crew that's been sent on an expedition to find a new home for humanity. But on their trip there, they get invaded by alien imposters that can imitate humans, catfish as them, shapeshift. I think especially for a Supermassive game where every decision should matter, the idea of inserting doubt into your own team, having you paranoid about who's human and who's alien, that could have been incredible. The stakes could have been huge. But unfortunately, it is extremely obvious who is human throughout. There are only a few exceptions where I doubted myself a little bit, but generally it was very easy to tell, and that's the problem. Directive 8020 really had no mystery to unravel. With Until Dawn and even The Quarry, which I did actually enjoy quite a bit, those games worked because the player was just as out of the loop as the characters that they were controlling. You and the characters discovered the mystery together. But with Directive, we know about the alien imposters pretty much from the beginning, and it's so annoying having to watch the characters slowly catch up. The aliens lose their edge almost immediately, because while it starts off really terrifying with an alien disguising itself as one of the crew members, once you actually encounter that crew member, she just starts throwing hands and brawling with you. It goes from this terrifying monster with infinite possibilities where you're overthinking, like, what else can these aliens do? Do they have any sort of powers? But then you actually encounter it face to face and it is literally just street fighting with you, fucking bare knuckle fighting. And from that first encounter onwards, I just did not feel anything about these aliens. There's a really annoying part of the game where your crew all have to go through this scanner to check whether they're human or not. Up until this point, my team was looking really good. I'd pretty much saved every character, but then LCA turns up and her imposter does as well. And what really annoyed me here is that both of them spoke in the same calm tone. They were both like, "It's me. Don't you know it's me? It's obviously me." No tone of concern in either of them. And what's really annoying is that the moment I picked the wrong decision and told them to both go through the scanner, the actual humans suddenly started panicking and screaming like, "Hey, no, that's the alien. Don't let her through."
Like, where was that energy 2 minutes ago when you had me making the decision?
This game is full of bullshit, I will say that, which is par for the course for Supermassive games. They've always had that flaw. The game will treat you like a fool for picking the wrong decision when it really wasn't clear which decision was the right one. Directive 8020 doesn't aim to be much of anything. At most, it's a very average sci-fi horror. It doesn't try to tell a bigger message. It does have a plot twist towards the end where it tries to make the story a little grander in scale, tale, but overall it's just perfectly content with being a scary time more than anything else. And you know what? I'd be happy with that from Supermassive, you know? I never expected them to do anything crazy. Even Until Dawn, which is said to be their magnum opus, to me that's like a 7 or 8 out of 10. It's not a masterpiece, it's nothing crazy, it's just a good time. But Directive 8020, while being on the course of being an average horror game, ends up being a pretty bad one because of a bunch of different flaws, the biggest being the characters. With a decision-based game, it's very important to have a strong cast. You need to enjoy their presence on the screen and feel a strong attachment to them. But with Directive 8020, these guys, every single one of them, feel like two-dimensional archetypes rather than actual people. They are not relatable in the slightest. Their dialogue is more generic motivational speeches than real human conversation, you know? Quite a few AAA games nowadays try to play dialogue really safe, and they all end up sounding the exact same. Characters talking in a corporate manner, rather than as if they're friends or family. This game especially has every character constantly giving you motivational speeches, as if they're not stuck on a ship with a bunch of murderous aliens. You are not meant to be giving motivational speeches in this situation. You are meant to be panicking and trying to figure this shit out. But instead, they spend all this time sounding like generic, cringy archetypes. Plus, Supermassive love hiring voice actors with a reputation, but it doesn't always work out because Directive 8020 has half of the cast sounding like they don't even want to be on this project. I don't want to call out any names in particular, but a lot of these guys aren't even trying. They're speaking in a very, very boring tone. Even in the craziest of situations, they don't have any fear behind their voice, no anger, nothing. They just sound bored to be there. Now, to give an example of this corny corporate writing that I'm talking about, there's a part where two characters say,
"Teamwork makes the dream work,"
and fist bump each other after getting a job done.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Shut up.
And keep in mind, at this point, they are already aware that they're in danger and something is really badly off. This sort of corny writing might work for Until Dawn and The Quarry, because those games were about a bunch of dumb teenagers just trying to have fun. However, it does not work when you've got a bunch of professional, clearly very intelligent adults who have gotten onto this crew acting like literal children. The writing is very MCU inspired. It plays it extremely safe, and in the process just ends up sounding extremely flat. I am man enough to admit that I got quite a few characters killed, especially towards the end, but my first death was Stafford, the captain of the crew. And a lot of these characters were very close to him. This is a terrifying way to go, especially in front of all the other crew members. And the way that they react is interesting to say the least. They just calmly reflect on his life minutes after his brutal passing. They talk about what a good guy he was, and this really confused me because the main character, Young, was especially very close to this guy. She obviously seems upset by it, but she's taking it like a complete and utter champ. This is not a good thing. Everyone reacts the same way, where they just accept it happened and move on. There is no trauma, there is no strong emotions, it's just immediate reflection and acceptance, and let's get on with it. Move on. It's just so laughably absurd. I also noticed that there's no real dynamics between characters in this game. For the most part, everyone interacts with each other the same way, regardless of who they're talking to. It's like relationships are non-existent in this crew. They all feel very neutral towards one another. Until Dawn and The Quarry had actual relationships. There were characters that didn't mesh together very well. Other characters that really liked each other and were too afraid to say it. These groups had tension behind them, because if one character was in the presence of another, you know something was about to go down, whether that be an argument or something else. But in Directive 8020, it's like everyone is just best of buds. They all have the same personality, the same corny, overly jokey dialogue. It's just very boring. And because of all this, because I don't think the characters were written in a meaningful or interesting way, I felt nothing towards them for the entirety of the game. In Until Dawn, I hated myself if I let anyone die, because it felt like the stakes were really there. I loved everyone in that group. If I let someone die, it would make me feel horrible. Not only would I not get to see them again and hear their dialogue, but I knew I had just ruined someone else's relationship, you know? People in that game cared for one another. I'd feel terrible for accidentally taking someone away from someone else. But in Directive 8020, as I said, I let several people die and I felt nothing. The cast are just a bunch of soulless vessels. Even the main character, who has a ton of screen time and flashbacks. The only time in the game that I happened to miss a quick time event is when the main character got crushed to death. And it was right at the end of the game, and while that should have been a huge blow to me, I just did not care. I just wanted to finish this game and be done with it. On the topic of QuickTime events though, let's talk about the gameplay, which is just entirely padding to make the game longer. A lot of the game is centered around getting doors open. You are going to encounter a hell of a lot of locked doors, and there's 3 different mechanics to deal with them. There's electrical wire puzzles where you have to reroute power to the door. There's ones where you're sticking a probe in and timing the trigger so it hits during this orange part, which was extremely easy. I got it first try pretty much every single time. And then you have power cells where you just have to find this part and stick it in the door. Why are there so many ways to open a fucking door? This literally just feels like pure padding because they didn't have enough writing or cutscenes or interesting characters to focus on the story. I recently revisited quite a few Supermassive games, and Directive 8020 is by far the least focused on story. With their previous games, you are in cutscenes 90% of the time, but here it's closer to
50%.
While I was initially excited to see just how expansive the gameplay mechanics were, it all got old very, very fast. A lot of these puzzles are not even puzzles. When you're rerouting power, you're just following a cable to a certain point, rerouting the power, then following another cable to get to the door. It feels like it wants to have puzzles, but it just doesn't. You're being spoon-fed everything. When you're not unlocking doors, you are doing stealth, which again felt really fresh for the first few times. It is actual stealth gameplay where you are hiding behind cover, timing yourself so the enemy doesn't spot you, and this was pretty cool initially. But there are 2 things that ruin the stealth for me. First, you have got to do this a ton of times, multiple times a chapter, and there's no real way to make this go by faster. There's no distractions you can throw to make the enemy look away. You are just timing yourself based on the enemy trying to find you. It is just pure stealth, and there is no additional mechanics here. The second thing that ruined it is when I realized that the enemy AI is always on a very strict and predictable path, which they literally never stray from. They do the same loop around the same places, and stealth is just a matter of timing. It's about being patient and waiting until they're looking away, then running around to another cover. That is all you are doing. Once you realize how strict the pathing is, it feels less like intense gameplay and more like a chore, just something to slow down the story and have you focus on this shit. for a little bit. So yeah, there are way too many stealth sections. And the other thing there's way too much of, vents. Of course, it's a horror game, you're gonna be crawling through vents, but Directive 8020 takes it to a whole different level because you spend so much time in these vents where your only purpose is to walk forward. I don't know what the f these are here for. Maybe to build tension. Sometimes it'll play some ambience or some footsteps above you or some distant growling. But after like the 23rd vent section, instead of building tension, it just left me with my own thoughts. And my own thoughts made me realize how much I would rather be playing anything else in the world than this. So whilst Directive 8020 is Supermassive's most mechanically expansive game, it doesn't even compare to a low-budget indie game in terms of engaging the player. It is just there to pad out the story. I don't want you to get the wrong impression though, and think that I'm saying Directive 8020 is a 1 out of 10 game that should never be played or touched. It does have some things going for it, not enough for me to ever replay it or recommend it to anyone, but enough to say that it's very, very average, like a 4 or a 5 out of 10. Visually, it's stunning. There's some very cool imagery and designs. I love the alien growth and how there's like faces stretching out of it, looking so creepy. There's some like real body horror going on with the monster designs that I wasn't expecting from a Supermassive game. It feels very Lovecraftian. There are also some very good environments, some nice atmospheric fog and lighting in certain sections that actually had me stopping and appreciating it. Visually, I don't have any complaints. I think it's all very nice. Some more credit that I want to give Supermassive. There's a plot twist near the end of the game which is very Returnal-esque. It does ramp up the story massively. The critique I had about this game not being very ambitious writing-wise, it doesn't quite fix that, but it did interest me enough and made me consider some things harder. It made me question my own morals a little bit and what I would do in this scenario. But it does not save the game. It is a glimpse of what Supermassive can do, a reminder of what's possible if they actually spent time perfecting a game rather than trying to get out a bunch of these mini dark anthology projects. Let's talk about the ending. Supermassive have always been pretty weak at ending games, and Directive 8020 is no different. The ending is a massive disappointment. For context, what crew I had left were all taken on a ship back to Earth, but it's revealed that I accidentally left an imposter on board. I was really interested to see what would happen, if it would show a cutscene with the crew getting killed by it. Also to note, as I said before, not every one of my crew members survived. Far from it, actually. I really did mess up in the last few chapters, either by making dumb decisions or by missing that one QTE which killed the main character at the very end. But instead of the ending showing me my crew's reaction to so many people dying or the aftermath of leaving an alien imposter on my ship, it just plays a preset cutscene of a future crew stuck in the exact same cycle. That future crew has nothing to do with the crew I'd spent the entire game with. I cannot tell you how disappointed I was. Just before finishing the game, I was already so tired of it, and I just wanted to see how it rounded off, see how the game reacted to all of my decisions, and it just doesn't. I don't think it even addressed the main character dying at all. Like, there was no reaction from anyone. Do you understand how disappointing that is? Until Dawn, which dropped in 2015, had a better ending than this game. I don't care if this is a smaller passion project or whatever. I do not care. It's 2026. It has been 11 years. How are you telling me your games are getting worse and less ambitious as they go on? My question is, why is the Dark Pictures name even attached to this game? The Dark Pictures Anthology is not a name that's seen in a positive light. It just sours the taste for Directive 8020. I think this game would have been way better as its own new thing, especially since there's there's no narrator interjecting throughout the story. That branding is attached for absolutely no reason. They're just way too caught up in the Dark Pictures stuff instead of focusing on something bigger. Until Dawn is your best game. That's not Dark Pictures. The Quarry is your second best game. That is also not Dark Pictures. Your actual Dark Pictures anthology games are all considered your worst decision-based entries. So why do you insist on trying to make this work? Leave it in the past. Move on. One final point as to why I think they need to ditch Dark Pictures and just spend more time working on proper, big, ambitious games. Directive 8020 comes with a storyline tree where you can see your different decisions and where they led. Now let's compare this to Detroit Become Human, which came out like 8 years ago. It is another decision-based game, and it branches into a million different storylines. There are so many different endings depending on what you do. Every decision actually matters. It's also a much longer game than anything that Supermassive have ever made. You can visually see, just by looking at these two trees side by side, how bare bones Directive 8020 is compared to other decision-based games. I think Directive 8020 could have been excellent if it just spent another 2 years in the kitchen, but I'm at the point where I don't have much hope for this company because they're just so adamant on releasing these projects as quickly as possible. Directive 8020 had the concept. The alien imposter thing could have been very cool, but in the end it's just not good enough. To end the video, here's a message to the developers in case you are watching. I know I have been very critical of your games. Little Nightmares 3, The Dark Anthology. These critiques don't come from a place of hatred or malice. They come from a frustrated fan. I am someone who actually really enjoys Until Dawn and The Quarry, and I just want that feeling back. Like I said, I wasn't even planning on making a video for Directive 8020. I got this game purely for my own enjoyment, but yet again, it's disappointed me. I can see the potential in these games. You have the foundations, you have the team, you have the budget. I just think you need to stop with the Dark Pictures games because they're not doing anything for you. You need like a fresh rebrand. Don't keep attaching games to a series that is constantly shit on by the internet. I just want to see you do better. That's all from me. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you think of the state of Supermassive. I'm gonna clock out now. See ya.